My daughter called me at 2:47 inches the morning, her voice barely a whisper. "Dad, please. They won't let me leave. Please come get me." When I arrived at the Mercer estate outside Calgary, my daughter's mother-in-law stood in the doorway and said, "She's staying here. This is a family matter." I pushed past her anyway. What I found in that locked bedroom made me realize I'd failed to protect my little girl. But I wasn't too late to bring them down. As a parent, what would you do if someone held your child against her will? I need to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. My name is Harold Callahan. Most people call me Harry. I'm 63 years old, and for 31 years, I served with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Fraud Division, mostly. Financial crimes. The kind of work that teaches you how money moves, how paper trails hide sins, and how the wealthy protect themselves from consequences. I retired 8 years ago, but old habits die hard. I still read financial statements the way some men read hockey scores. I still notice when numbers don't add up. My wife Catherine passed away 12 years ago. Ovarian cancer. The hospital did everything right, medically speaking, but the insurance company fought every claim, delayed every treatment approval, made her final months a bureaucratic nightmare. After she died, I spent 2 years investigating that company, found a pattern of denied claims, delayed approvals, patients who died waiting for treatments that should have been covered. My report went to the provincial health ministry. 3 executives lost their jobs. The company paid out $14 million in settlements. That's what I do now. I investigate, I dig, I find what people bury. But at 2:47 that Tuesday morning, I wasn't investigating anything. I was sitting in my study in Edmonton, unable to sleep, scrolling through old photographs of Catherine when my phone lit up. Claire's name on the screen. My daughter never called this late, not unless something was terribly wrong. "Claire, what's happening?" "Dad." Her voice cracked, shaking, barely audible. "Dad, please. You have to come get me. Please." Background noise. A man's voice, slurred and angry. Something crashed, glass breaking. "Claire, talk to me. What's going on?" "I can't. They're watching. They took my phone, but I found it. Dad, please. I'm so scared." The line went dead. I was moving before I even processed what I'd heard. Keys, wallet, the small digital recorder I always kept in my jacket pocket. 3 decades of police work had trained me to function when adrenaline flooded my system. My hands were steady even though my heart was pounding. The drive from Edmonton to the Mercer estate normally took nearly 3 hours. I made it in just over 2, pushing my truck through empty prairie highways, watching the speedometer climb past every limit I'd ever enforced. My daughter had been married for 3 years. Her husband Brandon came from the Mercer family, old Alberta money. His father had built a chain of private rehabilitation and wellness centers across Western Canada, 12 facilities from Vancouver Island to Winnipeg. Everything looked legitimate on paper. Luxury accommodations, licensed medical staff, glowing testimonials. The kind of places wealthy families sent loved ones to recover from addiction, burnout, or nervous breakdowns. I'd had concerns from the beginning. The Mercers were too polished, too controlled. Brandon's mother, Vivian, ran the family like a corporation, and something in her eyes reminded me of the fraudsters I'd spent my career pursuing. Cold calculation behind warm smiles. I'd tried to warn Claire. She'd accused me of being paranoid, of seeing criminals everywhere because of my job. She'd said I was trying to sabotage her happiness because I couldn't let go after her mother died. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was paranoid. But Catherine's voice echoed in my memory as I drove through the darkness. Her last coherent words to me. "Promise me you'll always watch over her. Promise me, Harry." I wouldn't fail again. The Mercer estate sprawled across 40 acres in the foothills west of Calgary. Rolling hills, mountain views, a main house that looked more like a resort than a home. I pulled up to the gate at 5:15 inches the morning, punched in the code Claire had given me when she first married Brandon. The gate swung open smoothly. They hadn't changed it, or they were expecting me. Every light in the main house blazed. I parked and walked to the front door, rang the bell, then pounded when no one answered. The door opened 6 inches. Vivian Mercer appeared in the gap. Silver blonde hair perfectly styled even at this hour. Silk robe, pearl earrings. Her expression was pleasant, controlled, and completely empty behind the eyes. Harold. It's barely past 5 in the morning. I know what time it is. My daughter called me. I want to see her. Claire is resting. She's had a difficult few days. The family is handling it. Open the door, Vivian. I'm afraid that's not possible. She's not well enough for visitors. We've arranged for professionals to assess her, perhaps in a few weeks. She called me terrified in the middle of the night. Open the door, or I'll open it myself. Her pleasant expression didn't waver. She's not leaving, Harold. This is a family matter. Claire is a Mercer now. We take care of our own. The way she said it made my blood run cold. Not leaving. Like my daughter was property. Like she was a prisoner. That's not your decision. She's my daughter. She's confused, unstable, making accusations. We're getting her the help she needs. I'd heard enough. I stepped back and drove my shoulder into the door. The chain ripped free. The door flew inward. Vivian stumbled backward, her composure cracking for the first time. This is breaking and entering. I'm calling the police. Please do. I have friends in the Calgary detachment. A sound from upstairs. Muffled crying. Female. Terrified. I ran for the staircase. Vivian's husband, Richard, appeared at the top, blocking my path. 68 years old, but still fit, still imposing. Behind him, Brandon emerged from a doorway, drink in hand, eyes bloodshot. Harold, you need to leave. Richard's voice was calm, authoritative, the voice of a man used to being obeyed. This is our home, our family. You have no right. Where's my daughter? She's resting. She's been having episodes. Delusions. We've documented everything. Brandon has recordings of her behavior. Medical professionals will be here tomorrow to evaluate her. I heard her voice. She's terrified. Let me see her. She's confused. She doesn't know what she's saying. The muffled crying grew louder, coming from a room at the end of the hall. I pushed past Richard, moved around Brandon. Someone grabbed my arm. I kept moving. The door was locked from the outside. A padlock. On a bedroom door. Claire. Dad? Her voice small, broken. Dad, please, please help me. I pulled out my multi-tool, the one I'd carried for 30 years. The padlock was decorative, expensive, not designed to withstand someone who actually knew what they were doing. It took me 45 seconds to defeat it. The room was set up like a bedroom, but felt like a cell. Expensive furniture, yes, but the windows had been screwed shut. The phone jack had been removed. A small camera pointed at the bed. My daughter sat on the floor in the corner, wearing a thin nightgown, arms wrapped around herself. She looked up when I burst in, and my heart shattered into pieces. She'd lost at least 30 pounds since I'd last seen her. Her hair was limp and unwashed, dark circles like bruises under her eyes. But it was her arms that made my vision blur with rage. Needle marks. Dozens of them. Up and down both forearms in neat, methodical rows. Some fresh and red, others faded to white scars. The pattern was deliberate. Someone had done this over weeks, maybe months. Oh, sweetheart. I knelt beside her, pulled her into my arms. She collapsed against me, sobbing. I'm sorry, Dad. I should have listened. I should have believed you. Shh. I've got you. I'm taking you out of here. They won't let me. They'll say I'm crazy. Brandon has everything documented. Videos of me when I was confused, when the drugs made me say things. They have doctors who will testify. I'm unstable. What drugs? Brandon put something in my drinks, my food. He says it's vitamins, supplements, but it makes everything foggy. I can't think straight. I lose time, hours, sometimes whole days. And when I try to leave, when I beg to see you or call you, they increase the dose. They tell me I'm imagining things, that I'm sick and they're helping me. Gaslighting, drugging, false imprisonment. I'd seen this pattern before in my career, usually in financial abuse cases, never involving my own daughter. Brandon appeared in the doorway. His bloodshot eyes were glazed, but amused. Jason, his younger brother, stood behind him. Richard blocked the hallway, 3 men between me and the exit. Harold. Brandon's voice slurred. Breaking and entering. Assault on my mother. You're not helping Claire's case. The marks on her arms. The drugs in her system. That's not help, Brandon. That's abuse. Self-inflicted. He shrugged. She's been hurting herself for months. We have documentation, video evidence, medical records showing a history of mental instability. You taking her away will only make it worse. A judge will order her returned within hours. Manufactured evidence. False documentation. The same techniques con artists use to steal fortunes from vulnerable victims. I helped Claire to her feet. She weighed almost nothing. I kept my arm around her and walked straight toward them. Get out of my way. Can't do that. Brandon reached for her. I twisted away, putting myself between them. Jason grabbed my shoulder. 30 years of training kicked in. I drove my elbow into his solar plexus. He doubled over, gasping, past them, down the hallway. Richard shouting something about lawyers, Vivian on the phone in the foyer. I didn't stop. Got Claire to my truck, set her in the passenger seat, started the engine, hit the gas. In the rearview mirror, the Mercer family stood in their doorway, silhouetted by mansion lights. Watching, not chasing. They thought they'd already won. My daughter drifted in and out of consciousness during the drive to Calgary. I kept one hand on the wheel, one on her shoulder, talking constantly to keep her awake. Asking questions, getting fragments of answers. The Foothills Medical Center emergency room was quiet at 7:30 inches the morning. A nurse with tired eyes and gentle hands took Claire back immediately. They wouldn't let me follow. I paced the waiting room for 3 hours. The doctor who finally emerged was maybe 40, professional, clearly troubled by what she'd found. Mr. Callahan, your daughter is stable. We've documented extensive injuries, including the injection sites on her arms. But what concerns us more is the chemical cocktail in her blood. What did you find? A benzodiazepine, a sedative commonly used in psychiatric facilities, low-grade opioids, and something we're still trying to identify. The combination is designed to create confusion, memory loss, and dependency. Someone has been administering these substances systematically for an extended period. How long? Based on the scarring and the levels in her blood? At least 8 months, possibly longer. Can you document all of this? We already have. We're also required by law to report suspected abuse cases to police. An officer is on his way. 40 minutes later, Sergeant Patricia Weston arrived. Late 40s, plain clothes, direct manner. I recognized her name. She worked major crimes in Calgary, had a reputation for being thorough and uncorruptible. Mr. Callahan, I need your statement. First, I need to know if I can trust you. My daughter says the Mercers have connections. Political donations, relationships with people in positions to make problems disappear. Something flickered in her expression. She closed the door to the small office we were using. The Mercers have been on our radar for 18 months, she said quietly. But every investigation has been blocked. Witnesses recant, evidence disappears, complaints are withdrawn. Someone in the system is protecting them. I don't know who. Then why should I trust you? Because I've been building a file on my own time. Unofficial, documenting what I can't officially investigate. And because 3 weeks ago, I made contact with federal authorities. The Mercer facilities accept provincial health funding and operate across multiple provinces. That makes certain crimes federal jurisdiction. Fraud, human trafficking, forcible confinement across provincial lines. What do you need from me? Everything you have, everything your daughter can tell us. And patience? Building a case against people like the Mercers takes time and solid evidence. They've been doing this for years. Your daughter might not be the only victim we can save. I told her everything. The call, the break-in, the padlock, the needle marks, Claire's description of the drugging and gaslighting. Weston took detailed notes, her expression growing darker with each revelation. We can arrest Brandon for assault and forcible confinement based on what you've told me, she said. But his family's lawyers will have him out on bail within hours. To truly bring them down, we need to prove a pattern. Multiple victims, systematic abuse, and ideally, catch them in the act of moving someone across provincial lines against their will. That's federal kidnapping. No local connections can touch that. How do we prove a pattern? Your daughter mentioned other patients at their facilities. People who complained and then went silent. People who tried to leave and couldn't. If we can find former employees willing to talk, former patients willing to testify, family members of people who died under suspicious circumstances. People died? We've identified 23 deaths connected to Mercer facilities over the past 6 years, all ruled accidental or natural causes, all involving patients who had complained about their treatment or tried to leave early. 23 deaths. My daughter had been months away from becoming number 24. The Mercers were arrested that afternoon. Brandon, Jason, Richard, and Vivian. All four released on bail by evening, just as Weston had predicted. Their lawyers issued a statement calling Claire mentally unstable and me a meddling father who couldn't accept that his daughter was sick. I drove Claire to my house in Edmonton that night, set her up in the guest room, made sure she ate something, watched her sleep for hours, afraid that if I looked away, she'd disappear. The next morning, I started making calls. My friend Douglas Chen had spent 20 years as a forensic accountant before retiring. He owed me favors from cases we'd worked together during my RCMP days. The Mercer facilities, I said. I need financial records, corporate filings, payment patterns, anything that shows where the money flows. That's a lot of digging, Harry. They held my daughter prisoner and drugged her for 8 months. They've killed at least 23 people. I'm going to destroy them. I'll start tonight. I spent the next 3 days researching. The Mercer family had built their empire over 40 years. 12 facilities generating roughly $78 million annually, provincial health contracts, private insurance billing, cash payments from wealthy families wanting discretion. But the negative reviews had been scrubbed. Former employees had been silenced with non-disclosure agreements and severance packages. Complaints to provincial licensing boards had vanished. Then I found the pattern in the death records. 23 deaths over 6 years. But the timing was wrong. Too many happened within weeks of patients filing complaints or attempting to leave. Too many were young and healthy before admission. I started calling families. The first call was to a mother in Kelowna. Her son, Nathan, had spent 3 months at the Mercer facility in Victoria. He was doing so well before, she said, her voice cracking. 2 years clean, but his employer suggested a wellness program. Preventive care, they called it. Nathan came out different, paranoid, agitated, saying things that didn't make sense. They told me he'd relapsed, but Nathan swore he hadn't touched anything. 6 weeks after he left, he was gone. They said he overdosed. But my son was terrified of needles, Mr. Callahan. He would never have injected anything. The second call was to a father in Saskatoon. His daughter had tried to leave the Edmonton facility after reporting that a staff member had assaulted her. A week later, she died in a car accident on a remote stretch of highway. Single-vehicle collision, they said, lost control on a curve. But Megan was the most careful driver I've ever known. And when I saw the police photos, the damage didn't look like she'd hit anything. It looked like she'd been hit. The third call was to a sister in Winnipeg. Her brother had filed a formal complaint with the Manitoba Health Ministry about conditions at the Mercer facility there. He died in his apartment 2 weeks later. They said it was suicide. Left a note and everything. But Kevin was angry. He wanted justice. He was gathering evidence, talking to lawyers. He wasn't giving up. He was fighting. People who are fighting don't suddenly stop. 3 families, 3 deaths, 3 investigations that went nowhere. I spent the next week cross-referencing names, dates, circumstances. Douglas sent me financial records that showed unusual payments to provincial inspectors, local police departments, and several politicians I recognized from news coverage. One name kept appearing in the margins, mentioned in terminated employee files, referenced in deleted online reviews, noted in internal memos that Douglas had managed to recover. Dr. Sandra Webb. A quick search told me the basics. Licensed psychiatrist, 51 years old. She'd worked as the medical director at the Calgary Mercer facility for 5 years before resigning 2 years ago. Her LinkedIn profile showed she'd moved to a small practice in Canmore. I drove to Canmore the next morning. Dr. Webb's office was in a converted Victorian house near the town center. She answered her own door, looking surprised to see a stranger. "Can I help you?" "Dr. Webb, my name is Harold Callahan. I'm investigating the Mercer facilities. I believe you have information that could help expose what they've been doing." Her face went pale. She stepped back, started to close the door. I signed an NDA. I can't discuss my previous employment. An NDA doesn't protect criminal activity. And I already know about the deaths, the drugging, the false documentation. I just need someone willing to confirm what I've found. She stopped, stood there for a long moment, hand on the door, clearly wrestling with something. "How did you find me?" "Your name appears in files from former employees, internal memos, people who tried to speak up before they were silenced." Another long pause. Then she stepped back and opened the door wider. "Come in. I've been waiting 2 years for someone to ask the right questions." Dr. Webb's office was small, cluttered with books and files. She made tea with shaking hands, then sat across from me and told me everything. I took the job because I believed in what they claimed to be doing. High-end rehabilitation, personalized treatment, helping people recover from addiction and mental health crises in a supportive environment. The facilities were beautiful. The pay was excellent. I didn't ask questions. When did you start asking? About a year in. I noticed patients who came in with mild issues, leaving with severe dependencies. Treatment plans that didn't match symptoms. Medication protocols designed to create compliance, not healing. I raised concerns with Richard Mercer. He told me to focus on my work and stop asking questions. But you didn't stop. I couldn't. I started keeping my own records. Parallel documentation of what I was actually seeing versus what I was told to report. Patients who complained about abuse and then suddenly had their diagnoses changed to justify longer stays. Families who questioned treatment plans and then were told their loved ones had deteriorated and needed more intensive care. It was systematic, calculated. The deaths? Her hands trembled. She set down her tea. I documented 8 cases where I believed patient deaths were suspicious. 4 were ruled accidents. 2 were ruled suicides. 2 were attributed to underlying health conditions that didn't exist before admission. I took my concerns to Richard Mercer directly. What did he say? He thanked me for my dedication. Then he told me that if I valued my medical license and my life, I would never mention my concerns again. He said people who made trouble for the family had a way of having accidents. He mentioned a former employee named Daniel Park who had fallen down a flight of stairs. The building where it happened was a bungalow. There were no stairs. Why didn't you go to the police? I tried. I called the Calgary police tip line anonymously. 3 days later, Richard Mercer called me into his office and read back my tip word for word. He said they had friends everywhere. He said the next accident might not be someone else's. I resigned the following week. Do you still have your documentation? She stood, walked to a filing cabinet, and pulled out a thick folder. I've been hiding this for 2 years, waiting for someone I could trust. You were RCMP? 31 years. Then take it. Take everything. Just promise me you'll be careful. These people don't make threats. They make things happen. And they've been doing it for a very long time. The folder contained 18 months of parallel documentation. Patient files with discrepancies highlighted. Medication logs that didn't match actual prescriptions. Internal communications discussing problematic patients who needed special handling. Financial records showing payments to provincial inspectors, local police officers, and 2 judges whose names I recognized. Dr. Webb had risked her career and her safety to document what she'd witnessed. She'd been waiting for someone to use it. I drove back to Edmonton with the folder secured in my locked briefcase. My phone buzzed as I pulled into my driveway. A text from an unknown number, a photograph of my front door, taken from the street. Then another message. We know where she is. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I uploaded Dr. Webb's documentation to 4 separate secure cloud servers, encrypted backups. If something happened to me, the evidence would survive. More texts came through the night. You're making this worse for her. Think about your grandchildren's futures. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed. I screenshot each message and forwarded them to Sergeant Weston. She called me at 6:30 inches the morning. Harold, we need to meet. Federal building downtown. 1 hour. I sat in a conference room with Weston and 2 RCMP officers from the Federal Serious Crimes Unit. Inspector Catherine Reynolds spoke first. Mr. Callahan, the evidence you've gathered, combined with Dr. Webb's documentation, gives us a strong foundation. But for federal prosecution, we need to catch them in the act. Specifically, moving someone across provincial lines against their will. That gives us jurisdiction no local corruption can touch. What are you proposing? We've identified a former Mercer employee named Jessica Torres. She's been trying to reach family members of victims, asking questions, gathering her own evidence. We believe the Mercers are watching her. When she meets with someone, they move to grab them, take them to a facility for evaluation. If we can document that happening, we have federal kidnapping charges. You want to use someone as bait. We want to catch them in the act. Surveillance teams at every exit, tracking devices. The moment they move, We're on them. The door opened. Claire walked in. I stood so fast my chair fell over. What are you doing here? I followed you. She looked at the federal officers. I want to help. Absolutely not. You've been through enough. Dad, listen to me. She walked to my side, took my hand. They're still out there, still doing this to other people. Someone else's daughter is in one of those rooms right now. Someone else's son is being drugged and gaslit and told they're crazy. If I can help stop them, you almost died. That's exactly why I need to do this. I can't just be a victim. I can't spend the rest of my life hiding while they hurt more people. Inspector Reynolds spoke carefully. Miss Callahan, what we're proposing would involve risk. You would meet with Jessica Torres in a public location. Our teams would be watching. When the Mercers move to intercept, we move to arrest. But there's a window, however brief, where you would be in their hands. I understand. Claire, no, my voice cracked. I can't lose you. She turned to face me. Her eyes were clear for the first time since I'd found her in that room. You won't. But you taught me something, Dad. All those years watching you investigate, watching you fight for people who couldn't fight for themselves. You taught me that some things are worth the risk. Let me do this. Let me fight back. I saw Catherine in her then. The same determination, the same refusal to back down from what was right. If anything happens to her, I said to Reynolds, it won't be just the Mercers I come after. Nothing will happen. We've done this before. Your daughter will be out of danger within minutes of any incident. Minutes is a long time. I know the risks, Claire said. I'm choosing this anyway. The operation was set for the following evening, a coffee shop in downtown Calgary. Claire would meet Jessica Torres at 7 p.m. FBI liaison officers from the U.S. were involved because one of the Mercer facilities was in Montana, giving them cross-border jurisdiction as well. Multiple agencies, multiple safety nets. As Claire prepared to leave that evening, every instinct I had screamed at me to stop her. She hugged me at the door. It's going to be okay, Dad. Call me the moment you arrive. I will. I watched her drive away. 7 p.m., 20 minutes to downtown Calgary. I'd spent 31 years walking into dangerous situations. I'd faced armed suspects, confronted organized crime figures, testified against people who threatened my family. But I'd never sent someone I loved into danger, never used my own daughter as bait. The waiting was agony. At 7:15, my phone buzzed. A photograph. Claire and Jessica Torres sitting in the coffee shop, visible through the window. The photo was taken from outside. Professional, deliberate. Then a text. Did you really think we wouldn't notice? My blood ran cold. I called Weston immediately. They're watching her. They sent me a photo. We see it. Our teams have eyes on 2 Mercer vehicles parked near the coffee shop. Stay calm, Harold. This is what we wanted. Let them make their move. That's my daughter. I know. And we're not going to let anything happen to her. Trust the plan. I grabbed my keys and drove toward Calgary. I couldn't just sit and wait. Not for this. My phone rang 20 minutes later. Unknown number. Mr. Callahan. The voice was Richard Mercer. Calm, controlled, triumphant. Your daughter seems to have forgotten that she's family now. Family doesn't betray family. Where is she? On her way home. To the facility where she belongs. We're going to help her this time. Really help her. By the time our doctors are finished, she won't remember any of these unfortunate accusations. I forced myself to sound desperate. It wasn't hard. Don't hurt her. Please. I'll give you everything. Dr. Webb's files. My documentation. Everything I've gathered. Just don't hurt my daughter. Bring it all to the Edmonton facility. Tonight, midnight, alone. If I see police, if I see anyone else, your daughter's treatment becomes more intensive. Let me talk to her. A pause. Rustling. Then Claire's voice, small and terrified. Dad, don't come. It's a trap. They want to. The line went dead. I called Weston. They took her. They're moving her to the Edmonton facility. We're tracking her vehicle. They crossed into provincial jurisdiction when they left Calgary. We have federal kidnapping charges. Our teams are repositioning now. Harold, we need you to go to that meeting. Bring the files. We'll be in position before you arrive. What if something goes wrong? It won't. But your daughter was very brave tonight. Make sure her bravery counts for something. I drove north through darkness. 2.5 hours through empty prairie. Headlights cutting through the black. My daughter's terrified voice echoing in my head. Even knowing this was planned, even knowing federal officers were tracking her. Hearing that fear was real. I thought about Catherine during that drive. Her last words. Promise me you'll always watch over her. I'd spent 8 years thinking that meant keeping Claire safe, protecting her from danger, shielding her from anything that might hurt her. But Claire had taught me something different tonight. Protection also meant trusting her to fight, trusting her to make brave choices, trusting her to be strong even when I was terrified. She'd volunteered for this, not because I pushed her, because she refused to stay a victim. The Edmonton Mercer facility appeared in my headlights at 11:45 p.m. A sprawling complex designed to look like a luxury resort. Beautiful grounds, expensive architecture, hiding something rotten underneath. I pulled up to the gate. It opened automatically. They were expecting me. A guard met me in the parking lot, led me through pristine hallways lined with art and fresh flowers. Everything designed to reassure, everything designed to hide. Then we reached an elevator going down. The basement was different. Cinder block walls painted institutional white, fluorescent lighting, the smell of industrial cleaner masking something underneath. The guard opened a heavy door. Inside, Claire and Jessica Torres sat in chairs, zip-tied at wrists and ankles, roughed up but alive. Claire's eyes met mine, and I saw terror and relief and guilt all at once. Richard Mercer stood near the back wall, composed as always. Brandon slouched against a table, drink in hand. Jason and 2 security guards flanked the only exit. Harold. Richard's voice was ice. You brought what we discussed? I held up the folder. Everything. Dr. Webb's documentation, my files, all of it. Set it on the table. I did. Brandon paged through it while his father watched. This appears to be complete, Brandon said. Of course it is. Richard nodded. Here's what happens now. These files are destroyed. Your daughter returns to treatment, long-term this time. And you, well, you've been under tremendous stress, haven't you? Working too hard, not sleeping. It wouldn't be surprising if you had an accident on the drive home. You can't do this forever. People are watching. People have been watching for 20 years, Brandon slurred. Hasn't stopped us yet. That's because you've never faced someone who wouldn't stop. I pressed the button on the small device in my pocket, the one Weston had given me before I left. The lights cut out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. Then Richard Mercer's own voice echoed from speakers in the ceiling, the words he'd just spoken playing back. These files are destroyed. Your daughter returns to treatment. You had an accident on the drive home. What did you do? Vivian Mercer's voice came from somewhere behind me. I hadn't noticed her enter. The RCMP has been very interested in your operation, I said. So has the FBI. An explosion from somewhere above. Breaching charges. The building shook. RCMP, Federal Task Force. Nobody move. Tactical officers poured through the door. Weapons drawn. Commands shouted. Brandon dropped his glass. Jason put his hands up. Richard Mercer's composure finally cracked, his face twisting with rage. Sergeant Weston entered, wearing tactical gear, flanked by federal officers. Richard Mercer, Vivian Mercer, Brandon Mercer, Jason Mercer. You are under arrest for kidnapping, forcible confinement, assault, conspiracy, and multiple counts of murder in the first degree. You have the right to remain silent. I crossed to Claire as officers cut her zip ties. She collapsed into my arms, sobbing. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry. Shh. You were so brave. I was terrified. That's what bravery is. Being terrified and doing it anyway. Inspector Reynolds appeared beside us. Your daughter's courage made this possible, Mr. Callahan. Without her willingness to help, they might have walked. She saved a lot of people tonight. Claire looked up. Really? Really? You're a hero. Over her shoulder, I watched officers lead Vivian Mercer away in handcuffs. Her face was still composed, but her eyes held something new. Fear. The trials took 14 months. The media coverage was relentless. A documentary produced by an independent filmmaker premiered during the proceedings, featuring testimony from 31 survivors of Mercer facilities, including Claire and Jessica Torres. 12 million views in the first month. I sat in that courtroom every single day and watched the Mercers realize that their money couldn't save them this time. The verdicts came down on a gray Thursday in March. Vivian Mercer, life imprisonment without possibility of parole. The judge listed her crimes methodically: conspiracy, racketeering, direct involvement in 19 deaths. She showed no emotion when the sentence was read. Richard Mercer, life imprisonment, 23 counts of murder in the first degree. He'd been the one giving orders. He'd known about every death. Brandon Mercer, 35 years for assault, kidnapping, conspiracy, and his role in the systematic abuse of his own wife. He'll be nearly 70 when he's eligible for parole. Jason Mercer, 20 years for conspiracy and assault. He was the youngest. His lawyer argued he was following orders. The judge didn't care. Dr. Palmer, the physician who had falsified medical records and administered dangerous drug protocols, took his own life 3 weeks before jury selection. They found him at his vacation home in Banff. The Mercer facilities were shut down. All 12 locations, assets seized. The courts established a $42 million victim compensation fund. 53 survivors came forward. Every single one received a settlement. The case triggered investigations across Canada and the United States. Regulations were strengthened. Oversight was increased. It didn't fix everything. It never does. But it helped. Claire started a support group with Jessica Torres 6 months after the trials ended. They meet every week, helping survivors of institutional abuse find their voices and their strength. I attended one meeting, sat in the back, and watched my daughter help other people heal from what she had survived. That's when I knew I'd kept Catherine's promise. A letter arrived 8 months later. Prison mail. Brandon's name in the return address. You think you've won. But this isn't over. My family has connections you can't imagine. Resources you don't know about. When I get out, I'm coming for both of you. And this time, there won't be any federal agents to save you. I photographed the letter, front and back, sent copies to Weston, the federal prosecutors, and Brandon's parole board. Then I filed the original in my evidence cabinet. Let him threaten. Every word just added to his file. That evening, Claire called. Dad, someone reached out through the support group. Her mother is at a private care facility in Vancouver. She says things are happening that sound like what we went through. Staff that won't answer questions. Medications that weren't prescribed. Phone calls that get cut off. I pulled out a fresh notebook. Wrote down the facility name. Started researching. I'm 63 years old. My knees ache. I get tired earlier than I used to. Sometimes I look in the mirror and see an old man who should be fishing or playing with grandchildren instead of investigating criminals. But I also see someone who knows how to fight, who spent 31 years learning how to follow paper trails and expose lies, who made a promise to his wife and kept it. Claire is safe. Claire is strong. Claire is helping others survive what she survived. And there are more people out there who need help. More families being torn apart by people who think their money makes them untouchable. So I can't stop. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I made Catherine a promise 12 years ago, and I keep my promises. Looking back on this story, I see a father who almost lost everything because he didn't trust his instincts soon enough. Don't be like me. Don't wait until your child calls you in the middle of the night, terrified and trapped, before you act on what you know in your gut is wrong. These stories I share aren't just entertainment. This happened because powerful people thought they could get away with hurting the vulnerable. And they did get away with it. For years. Until someone finally stood up. The lessons I learned came at a terrible cost. First, trust is earned through actions, not words. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. I saw warning signs with the Mercers from the beginning, but I second-guessed myself because Claire seemed happy. Don't make that mistake. Trust your instincts. Second, evil hides behind respectability. The Mercers had money, status, political connections. Their facilities looked beautiful. Their lawyers were expensive, but none of that made them good people. Appearances can be manufactured. Character cannot. Third, documentation is power. Keep records, save messages, take photographs. The evidence that brought down the Mercers existed because people like Dr. Webb had the courage to document what they witnessed, even when they were afraid. Your notes might save someone's life someday. Fourth, never stop fighting for those you love. At 63, tired and hurting, I could have walked away. Could have told myself Claire was safe now, that it was someone else's problem. But fighting for justice isn't just about one person. It's about everyone who might come after. Everyone who might be the next victim if we look away. And finally, the most important lesson of all. Your children are watching. They learn from what you do, not what you say. Claire volunteered to put herself in danger because she'd spent her whole life watching me stand up for what was right. She learned courage from watching me be courageous. What are you teaching the people who watch you? This story is a warning and a lesson. When you see injustice, when you know something's wrong, when someone you love is in danger, act. Don't wait. Don't second guess. Don't assume someone else will handle it. Be that someone. I'm still fighting, still taking calls from families who need help, still keeping the promise I made to Catherine. Don't be like me and wait too long. Be better, be faster, be braver. And always, always trust what your heart tells you is right.